Just thank you all for coming. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my research interest, and the reason this is my interest is because of what I do in life. So I myself am an athlete. I play rugby. Most everybody knows I'm the rugby person here at school. So it's really no secret. If you don't know, now you do. So what I've really tried hard to do is not make it all rugby and make it more sport, interesting across the board. So I'm also the head coach of the University of Minnesota women's rugby team here. Many of my athletes are here. Thank you for coming. Okay. Also, I do work for USA Rugby as a coach educator. So I work with a lot of coaches. I actually see a couple of you that have taken courses from me too. So thank you for coming. So that's sort of my background, why I became interested in this. Where I first found out about it was Psychology of Coaching course here, which I like to think of it as therapy class for me. As other coaches, if you've taken that class, it's absolutely excellent. So this is where I first found out about this concept of millennials, and they're integrated into the world that I live in. And I started to notice some trends, and when I first took on the role as a head coach, I was like, oh man, there's so much to do, and I'm not really understanding what's happening. And then this came to me, and I said, this is the answer. So here we go. So to start off, take a look at this quote. And you'll notice a couple of things. So my question for this whole line of research is, why do we care about millennials? Okay? And to me, if you look at it, I like the concept of it actually being seen as upbeat and engaging. A lot of the media and resources out there say, oh, millennials, they're lazy, they're entitled. Okay, if you haven't heard that, you probably will. Google search millennial, it'll come up and you'll read it. Okay. The other concept is that it's potentially seismic for America, right? So if anything that's going to have that much of an impact, I'm pretty interested in it, and I want to find out why. Okay. So, and if you look at that picture, these are the kids that I coach around that age. Okay, so to first get started, we'll have to define what a generation is. So Strauss and Howe, they've looked at everything from people and events that have happened from 1584 on, and they continue to do so. So I consider that enough theoretical background for them to be pretty much experts on it. Yeah, so they look from there on through it. Yep. So they describe it as a cohort whose length approximates the span of a phase of life and whose boundaries are fixed by personality. So that says a lot about personality, interesting things that happen to them. The other one is identified more specific, which Cooper Schmidt talked about, is birth years, age, location, significant life events at critical developmental stages. So that pretty much sums up what a generation is. If you've ever heard the song My Generation or anything generation, that's what it's all about. So millennial athletes, who are they? Okay, they are the trophy kids. Right? They are the kids that were brought up in youth sports environments that got snacks after they played, and they got trophies for participating, and they were told how wonderful and special they are. Okay? They grew up. Okay? They're here. Some of them are in this room, people that I coach. Okay? So they are born approximately in or after 1982. I was born in 81, so I'm right on the edge. Okay? I'm Gen X, sort of. But there's a lot of me that's millennial too, as I've come to find out. They are the current high school and collegiate athletes, and they're also known as Generation Y, although they prefer millennial. It's more of a unique, interesting term. Gen X implies they're after. Gen X and Gen Y implies that they're after Gen X. They're more special than that. So, current coaches. So, if you were born between the years of 1943 and 1960, go ahead and stand up. We've got one, absolutely. Two, there we go. Okay, so you are, there you go. All right, so you are a product of the baby boomer generation. Okay, and they talk about specific significant events. There's a whole book that's about this thick that talks about the specific events that really have impacted your generation and shaped what you know and why and your values and beliefs. Some of the more important ones are Vietnam War, Watergate, the Reagan Revolution. You can start to think about where were you at those times, how did they impact you. If you were born between 1961 and 1981, go ahead and stand up. There we go, we've got a few more. Okay, you can take a seat. All right, so you are Generation X. Okay, Roe versus Wade, war in the Middle East, a number of different significant events that have happened and impacted you. Millennials, okay, here you are, stand on up. Absolutely. Okay, so many of you can probably remember the Columbine massacre and how that impacted you. Okay, how many people had metal detectors in their schools? That's probably a big part of it, all right? And also social networking. How many of you spend endless hours on Facebook instead of doing the homework you should be doing because it's finals time? Okay, I'm in that boat too, don't worry about it, but I consider it research. Okay, so good news. Here's the good news, okay? Millennial athletes out there, you are known as collaborative, diverse, technological, highly educated, confident, team-oriented, respectful, and conventional. If I had a team full of those, which I do mostly, okay, I would absolutely have no problems in life whatsoever with coaching, I think, okay? So they're also driven to achieve and impress significant others. Okay? If you're teachers or coaches, how many of them really want that feedback all the time or really will do anything, okay, to just impress you, okay, to make your day by saying, I learned something new. Also, they do have a strong connection to parental figures. Okay? This is a good thing in a lot of ways because those parents that brought the snacks, okay, and drove the carpool to the youth sport events, okay, they are now grown up and they're running your booster clubs if you're in high school or if you're at college, or they're even your assistant coach, which might be very helpful. Okay, so here's the not so good news. Okay? They can also be described as needy, sheltered, lazy, entitled, arrogant, anxious, pressured, impatient, non-committal, and argumentative. Okay? So there's some good and there's some bad somewhere in there, both sides of the story. Okay? They are often pressured into early specialization. A lot of times parents, those parent figures. Okay, so you think about helicopter parents, right? That's sort of the not so good side of it. So see how it can be a positive, but it's also a not so good side too. Okay, so those parents that are calling you saying, why isn't Johnny or Susie getting the playing time that she deserves? That's something that you have to deal with as well. So, but this early specialization is really driven, okay, by this parental idea that you'll get this college scholarship or this will help you in life. So they're trying to do the best they can for their kids. So it really influences them. So here's some anecdotal evidence. I'm also a physical activity program teacher here. I teach rugby, shocking, and soccer class. Okay, and one of the assignments I gave my soccer class was that they get to pick their own team names. Okay, being unique and individual millennials. Guess what their team names were? Team make friends. Okay, social, collaborative. Okay, they did this all on their own. That was fantastic. I said, thank you, soccer class. Barcelona Football Club, diverse, team-oriented. And the Candy Cobras, special, confident. Okay, you have a name like Candy Cobras and you're playing a competitive sport, you're probably pretty special. And you probably think you're pretty good. Okay, so here, back to think about, these are some matchups. Okay, this is sort of a conglomeration of all the different resources, that interdisciplinary sources of information, which is in education, management, all sorts of different places that you can find this information on millennials. Like I said, if you Google search it, it'll come to every number of journal in the world. Here it is. I've sort of summarized it all. Okay, and the thing to think about here is if you look in your category, based on when you stood up, based on your birth year, okay, you're probably thinking right now, some of these are not quite me, or some of these are more me. Like for me, I think I'm more technologically apprehensive, okay? So I'm probably more the baby boomer side there, right? And my athletes will agree with me because they teach me how to use technology every day. Thank you. They help me with this presentation even, okay? So, but those that know me, I'm not very cynical, okay? So I'm Gen X. So you can also think about is that these are sort of more views that have come from different events that have happened in life, but they're not written in stone. Okay, you can pick and choose or kind of slide one way or another dependent on when you were born. Me being on the edge between Gen X and Millennial, I might have more Millennial characteristics. It all depends on the individual. So we'll talk a little bit about the impact on coaching effectiveness. So I started to think, wow, there's some sort of phenomenon going here. I really have to find out what it is. So I found Horn's working model of coaching effectiveness. And what it really serves to look at is how these situational and individual differences really work to become or help coaches be effective or ineffective. So what you look at is there's different sport contextual factors that play a big role in it, and they mediate the link between coaches' behavior and coaches' behavior and athletes' performance and behavior. And those contextual factors are things like what's your sport type, what are you playing, what's your competitive level, and your personal characteristics. And personal characteristic, what's your age? Okay, so how does your age play a role in that? So that for me was a big sort of aha, light bulb moment of this is why this happens. Okay, and if you go through, so now we're trying to look, okay, you know all about it. We understand who the millennials are. We understand what generation you fall into. We know the role that it plays in coaching effectiveness. So what does this have to do with female coaches? So Vicki did such a great job of talking about leadership elements, so it kind of works really well into mine. So what I found was a study about female leadership that was Egli, Johansson, Schmidt, and Van Agen. And Vicki and I actually talked about it a little bit before. And it's a meta-analysis of 45 studies on gender differences in leadership style. They found overall that females are more transformational. Okay? That means they're more supportive and they're more encouraging of their subordinates. Okay? When they are more transactional, it's when it has to do with contingency reward behaviors. Okay? The good news is that they're both related positively to effective leadership. So how does that kind of, from that study that's more based in psychological and management workplace theory, how does it transfer over into the sporting field? Well, if you think about it, millennial athletes thrive under consistent supervision and when they have positive feedback and reinforcement. Okay, that sounds a lot like that transformational component of leadership that we talked about. So, matches up nicely with what millennials are looking for. Okay, they also will work hard for tangible rewards. So the time that they are transactional, okay, that's what the athletes are looking for, and they're saying, wow, I want to be rewarded for the behavior that I'm doing, and I'm going to work for it. So that's an element that's really sort of works to, in female coaches' benefit. The other, if you think about what's the most important thing to you young people that are here in this room, it's logically probably your social connections. Okay, the Sporting Goods Manufacturing Association just came out with a report that pretty much tracks the sport interest and different components. They said that Generation Y, or the millennials, is most interested in any sort of social activity through physical activity. Okay, they also said that there's a 50% increase in sports like rugby and lacrosse, which is awesome. But what we think about is that they are very looking to form these great relationships. So, and most everybody knows that women are more relational in general. Okay, the last component of it is that they are comfortable with this autonomy, supportive leadership style. And it's just like back home, right? The homes that they were brought up in, where mom and dad are sitting around and trying to figure out how to work the TiVo, who do you think helped them? Okay, it was their kids, right? Their kids are experts in the eyes of their parents, in the eyes of their authority figures, right? So when they get to a sporting environment, they're used to saying, hey coach, here's how you do it, okay? Or I think I know better, because that's how they were brought up. Okay, so they're used to being able to have decisions and being able to make decisions and impact what's going on. So, the coach's to-do list, okay? Coming away from this, tell your friends, teammates, athletic directors, anybody you know, all these great things that align with this new group of young people, high school and collegiate athletes. Okay, let them know here's what they're about, here's what they like, here's what works for them, and tell them that that's what female leaders do. Okay, so female leaders do these things, millennials are looking for them, you might want to hire them, you might want to play for them, you might want to look for that opportunity. Okay, you can also learn from your athletes. On our team, we talk about having technology moments of the day. Okay, so for me, being technologically apprehensive, I learn something new every day. There's not a practice that doesn't go by that they don't tell me something about my smartphone or Facebook or whatever happens. It also opens up new lines of communication, and it just helps me get along. If they're going to use it, I might as well figure out a way to use it too. Okay, also share my personal values, beliefs, experiences, and skills with my athletes. Okay, so as much as YouTube and Twitter are great things to use, okay, nothing beats a sit-down one-to-one conversation where you have to talk to an athlete about playing time or another issue. Okay, so old school sometimes is just as good as new school. And also to embrace these differences as opportunities. Okay, if you look back to that first slide, back to that quote, ignore some of these things that say how millennials will cause you headaches and cause you problems. Okay, look at it as it's an opportunity, right? It's something new for you to learn. I've learned more in these last 2 years coaching this group of girls than I've ever done before, simply because I was open to it. Okay, and also look for new stuff to use when coaching. Okay, I read a whole lot of management books now, so I get away from these coaching books all the time. So I look at education, I look at all sorts of different areas to find information that will help me to be a more effective coach. And I never thought of it, okay, until I came here, sought this education, learned something new from previous coaches. So what's up next? The next generation, they're still looking to kind of come into their own and create this identity. Okay, they're called the global generation, or Generation Z even. They're not even settled on that name yet, so who knows? Okay, who knows what's going to be coming up in the future? Okay, also, what's next for female coaches? Okay, my hope is that with this information, you can take this out, talk to different people, spread the word, and that number that seems to be decreasing since Title IX for female coaches will start to increase. because people will start to see, wow, leadership characteristics of females, they work perfect. Okay, they're absolutely wonderful for this new generation. And last, thanks athletes, because you guys, every day, you make me want to learn more and make me be a better coach. Thank you very much.